I'll let you know once it starts. Yep, all good. Over to you, Satya.
Thanks, Rachit. Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're joining from. I believe most of you are joining from India or somewhere in the Asia. So most probably good afternoon. Let me share my screen first, and we can get started. And let me know, Rachit, if you can see the screen.
Yeah.
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 Okay, thank you. So, welcome to session number 26 of D365 UZ India's. And today our speaker is Venkatesh, who is joining us from Dubai. And he also had our last session in November. So thank you very much, Venkatesh. Before I hand over to Venkatesh, some brief introduction about our group and how the session will go today. And in the end, we'll cover what will be our upcoming session. Okay. So quickly about this group. This group with the name D365 UZ India, it was founded by Rachit, and me and Umesh have been joined the group later on. So we are the 3 volunteers, and we are still waiting for more volunteers somewhere from India. So if you are interested, feel free to join this group as a volunteer. Right. So we are also on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter. If you want to join, I will stay on the screen for a minute. You can scan this course and join our groups. Globally, we have more than 890 members so far in our group. Who are connected with us through LinkedIn and mostly LinkedIn and YouTube. So all our past sessions are you will find on YouTube if you want to go through them. It is all available on YouTube. Right. So this is the list of all the sessions so far, and we started almost 1.5 years ago in July 21. And we had some very renowned speakers from Microsoft in the very beginning, and they have been joining us time to time and bringing up the latest and greatest topic of Microsoft Dynamics. Okay, so today's session, I'll hand over to Venkatesh now. Venkatesh, take over from here.
Yes, thank you, Satya. So today we are going to talk about the accounts payable automations. So right now we have focused on 2 kind of automations. One is on the OCR side, that is on the invoicing, and the other is on the payment automation. So the OCR side is a kind of integrated platform which Rachit will give you an overview, and then I'll take over for the payment process. Over to you, Rachit.
Thank you, Venkatesh, and thanks everyone for joining us today in this session. It's so exciting to see the number of audiences who have joined and who have been supporting us from last 1 year. So thanks a lot. I'll just share my screen. So the the drill is that I will be talking a bit about the new OCR invoice capture solution, which has been released as a part of finance and operations offering from Microsoft. Just give me a minute. Let me know when you can see my screen. Is it visible?
Yep, can see.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so basically, once I'll talk about this solution and then I'll hand it over back to Venkatesh. So what this solution does is it basically fills that gap which was present in the end-to-end, payment cycle. So once we raise a purchase order or once the vendor sends an invoice, what happens is this area was a gap where a lot of ISV solutions came up, where the incoming documents were scanned and the information was extracted and it was then pushed into Dynamics. And once the information is pushed into Dynamics, then the further processing of that invoice with regards to the review, approval, matching, and payment, all these functionalities happen within FNO. So Microsoft has recently released this new invoice capture solution, which is built on Power Platform to fill this gap and make it as an standard offering. So what this solution does is it basically reads the incoming invoice from various channels, extracts the information, and pushes it into Dynamics as a pending vendor invoice. There is also a UI component, which is a model-driven app, which works in Power Platform. So I'll show you quickly that. Uh, a very high-level view of this solution is that first one thing is it's out of the box, so it is very new, it is still in preview, so there are few areas where Microsoft is refining it based on the feedback. But basically what it does is when the vendor invoice lands in multiple places, the Power Automate senses that the invoice has received, and then Microsoft AI Builder is used to extract the information from the invoice, and then there is a model-driven app which is built on top of Dataverse. So these four solution components are basically doing this whole magic for us, where they are reading the incoming document, extracting the information, creating a payload for Dynamics, and pushing it inside Dynamics. Once it is inside Dynamics, then the vendor invoice management and automation capabilities exist within the product. And there is quite a new functionality which is released in this area, which Venkatesh will be taking us through. So how to install this solution? I'll quickly talk through it. So there is a solution is published in app source where you can actually it's a free trial, so we can install it using a link which Microsoft has shared on their website. So I'll just jump into a bit of a demo mode. So what happens is this is the Microsoft Learn page, which has all the steps of how to install the solution. Now, before you install the solution, there is a step to register a new Azure application in your subscription, and basically then you have to define it as a application in the finance and operation. This is quite a important setup because I have seen people read it but they forget to do it, and that's when the communication is hampered. So this is a prerequisite in almost most of the integration scenarios, so it's pretty standard thing. Then what you have to do is go to app source, and this is the link. So if you take copy this link, it basically takes you to that app which I have shown. So what you do is you click on the install button, and then what it will do is it will install these solutions in your Power Platform environment. So what I did for this particular demo is I just installed it an hour ago. I installed it in our free Dataverse environment where I installed it from the app source. Now, what happens after you install it from the app source, you have to actually download a assistant solution. This is basically a zip file which you click, it will download on your system. And then what you have to do is go on import solution and browse that file. And basically then you can upload it and it basically installs it. So once you install this, the invoice capture app is shown in your Power Apps portal as an application. If you can see here, invoice capture app, which is a type of app model driven. So that was the reason I said it's a model driven app. So this is around the installation part. Now the next step is to build the connection between this model driven app and finance and operations. So the way to do that is basically when you go to the solutions which are installed, there is a solution with the name of invoice capture installation tools. And what this particular solution contains is a Power Automate, which basically set up the connection between finance and operation and this particular model driven app. Now, in order to run this particular cloud flow, you need your FNO environment URL, and you need your Azure Active Directory app ID and the client ID and the secret. So these things are needed to run this flow. And once you provide these information here, then it basically establishes a connection between your finance and operation environment and your invoice solution, which is in Power Platform. So the key thing to note here is that this connection is not using dual write framework. I have been asked this question by a lot of people, that is it using dual write? So it's not using dual write, but it is using Dataverse to store the information. So when I won't be able to go too deep at this stage, but basically, if you open up these solutions, you'll be able to see what are all the backend components available. Now let's talk about the front end UI configurations of the invoice capture app. So when you open the invoice capture app, there are few things which you have to do in order to wire it properly. So this is how it looks when you log in. Then you go on the system setup side. Here you have to set up few things. And one good thing with model-driven apps is here you can see all the things which you need to define. So you can just click on configure from here and you can go to that page. But anyway, it's a small list. So you first have to manage your channels. This is where you have to create different channels through which the files are coming. Uh, then you have to define some filters. This is basically a way to identify which files will be read by this invoice capture solution. Then you can define more files. This is a default setup which comes into the application. Then you have to manage a configuration group. This is basically used by the AI builder, which is running under the hood to basically score the accuracy of the invoice matching tool. This is the default setting which comes here. The important part is the manage legal entity. So what happens here is you have to click on the sync button when you have that will basically build the connection with your FNO app and your invoice capture app, and it will create list of all the legal entities which are in your finance and operations environment. Because this is just a trial, it's not really wired to a FNO instance, but basically there is a Power Automate which comes as a part of the solution which will synchronize your legal entities. So this is around the system setup. Next setup is mapping rules. This is where once the information is extracted, system will identify, okay, I have extracted the information. How do I transform or map it to finance and operation settings? So this is where you define how the extracted information will be mapped to finance and operations. So this is your legal entity mapping, that if this is just the name of the rule, but if the company name which is coming from the invoice contains this character, then this is the legal entity in finance and operations. So this creates a mapping for your legal entities. Similarly, you have to map your vendor accounts, which is where you define, okay, how do I identify my vendor? And for this, there are things like, okay, if the vendor name contains Fabricam, or if the address contains this, if the tax registration number contains these things, then my vendor account will be US 104. So this is where you can create your rules to identify your mapping with finance and operation. You have to define your item mapping rules. This is where you can say, when the items are extracted from the invoice, how do I map it to my finance and operations item? And the expense types are also used to map with your procurement categories. So this is a bit of a under the hood configuration of which is utilized by this invoice capture app to understand the information. Now, when it comes to manage invoice, this is where business users will work. Here, they will be able to see a dashboard of what has been done. Then in captured invoice, they will see which invoice were captured, what was the amount, and this all information is extracted. And received files is an area where you can actually open the processed documents. And here you can side by side see what document was received and how it looked, what was the information, and if the processing has failed or it has passed. As I said, this is a demo app and it's not wired. That's why the processing has failed, but I'm able to push invoice into this. So this is a quick UI screen of the invoice capture app. Just few more things with regards to what I want to share is this is about installation, setup, and configuration, some lessons learned and few tips and tricks. So in order to run this, you need AI Builder credits in your Power Platform environment. If you don't have AI Builder credits, you will face errors when executing this. So in order to have your AI Builder credits, you basically have to go to your Power Platform admin center, go to your resources, capacity, and here you can manage, and here you can basically buy some AI builder credits. So it's a free tenant at the moment, but if you have a paid tenant, then there are some default credits available, which you can define that how many I want to use. So this is quite important step from technical perspective. You should have Azure AI builder credits in your subscription. Do not forget to run the Cloudflow to connect FNO with the app. Otherwise, even though you have set up everything, it will not work because your app will not be able to talk to finance and operation. The only setup which goes to in finance and operations is your Azure Active Directory setup. You just have to create one record where your Azure application ID, which you created in step one, is defined. So this particular Azure Active Directory application which you created, you have to define this in finance and operations. So that's the only setup required in FNO. Rest all is happening in your Power Platform and your model-driven app. If you want to know more about it and do some deep dives, there is a tech talk published by Microsoft where Microsoft team has elaborated it and shown and quite a in-depth demo. And this is the link of the Microsoft Learn page. I actually had it here. So this is the tech talk which Microsoft has published. We have shared the link. I'll share it in the chat window, but feel free to watch it. It's an hour long video, but it's quite uh, good, and they have shared a lot of details. There is a lot of information on Microsoft Learn as well. So with that, just circling back to where we were, which is around the end-to-end process where your invoice once received has been now captured in your invoice capture solution. It is pushed to finance and operations, and now Venkatesh will take us forward with this journey. So thank you for listening to me, and over to you, Venkatesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachit. Let me share my screen. Hope my screen is visible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk more on the solutioning side, on the side of automating your payment. Once, let's say that your invoice has been captured and the invoice has been processed in the system. And as on the due date, you need to initiate the payment. For this payment, we need to have some of the basic setups in the system, which is like a minimum criteria of your vendor and invoice should be there. Along with that, you need to have the due date specified for that invoice. And along with that, you need to create the vendor payment journals in the system and the payment days in the system. Only then you can be able to do the automation processing. So let me go to Dynamics and I'll show you the minimum basic requirements as well. Is my dynamic screen visible?
It was, but now it is not.
Okay, 1 second. Now?
No.
No.
Okay, 1 second. Something wrong with my Teams. I'll share back again.
In the meantime, guys, you can post any questions in the chat window and feel free to react with some applauses.
Is there a way I need to make me as host or something, Rachit? I'm not
Uh,
able to
let,
change that. Somebody changed it, maybe.
maybe just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Uh, yours is Venkatesh Y?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you try now?
Yes. I got it now. Now, hope you can see my dynamic screen.
Yeah.
Yes. So the process is you need to create one vendor payment journal in the system first. I'll not go too deep into the process of the prerequisites, but just I'll show them what is needed. So that is under GL and under journal names. So this should be, there should be a payment journal created. That is for AP payment, and the journal type should be vendor disbursement. Okay, so this is the prerequisite. And once you have this created, now let's go and create one automation. This is under AP module. You have the process automation under the payment setup. Okay, so just click on the process automation setup. Already I have created one. I'll create one more and show you. So you need to click on first create payment automation, and then there is a schedule type, which you see the vendor payment proposal. And this is the legal entity you have to select for which legal entity you wanted to do this automation. So I'm doing it for INMF company and create series. So once you have created the series, you need to give a name. So I will say vendor payment for INMF, and a description, vendor payment automation. INMF, and right now I'm an admin, and you have to give the scheduling time and what time it should start the process every day. So let me give it 10 a.m. and the start date. It will pick the today's date, and if you have a specific start date, you can change it to that particular start date. And you want to run the process for unlimited period of time, you don't give the end date, or you want to restrict at some point of time that I wanted to run this process to see for a week or for a month, and then you have to give the end date, and the time zone will automatically pick from the user. And how do you want the repetition here? So you wanted it to run daily, weekly, or monthly, you can set it up here. And also you can set up the interval also. So every weekday you wanted to run, or if I have given the daily, so I have given it daily, and you wanted to run only for weekday, you can select it. And you wanted to receive the alert whether this was successful or it was ended. It will check the batch job status, and it will update you whether the process was run properly or not. And you wanted to get an email alert as well, you can say yes, and it will run the email alert as well. And then let's go to the next screen. So here you have to select the journal name, which uh, which is the one we have created, and this is the AP payment. And you wanted to give the criteria for your invoice selection. How do you want the invoices to be selected, whether it is due date or due date and cash discount date, and both the criterias you can set. And any other criteria you wanted to define, you can select yes or no, and you can give a limit. So I wanted to only pick the invoices basing on this criteria only for this amount, I can set it up here. And there is also called payment defaults. How do you want to make the payment? So I can select the relevant currency, and I wanted to make a payment. And there is a payment weekday, you wanted to do only that day the process, or you wanted to give all the payments. So some of the organization have this process that I do all my vendor payments on Monday and the first day of the week. So I do 4 times in my month, so they can have this process. So they can select that I will do Monday, or if they have any other policy internally, they can follow it. Otherwise, they can keep blank so that it will run every day. So let me select Monday for now. And how do you want this payment to be processed? So you want it to be processed with a bank. So you can select a bank account. And after this, do you want to delete any negative payments or delete check the vendor balances? You can turn the relevant checkbox. And also, does it right now I'm processing for one legal entity, and you wanted to do a centralized payment process? This is a process where I can do payments for multiple legal and other entities. Like you have a group finance department which manages your entire group. So in this process, you can have them managing for all other legal entities as well. This process can be automated for them also. So once you have the relevant setup for centralized payments turned on in the system, and you will have an option to turn this on as well. So it will pick for other entities as well and get the payment processed. So you have an option to record to filter as well. So this you can use it for a particular vendor or a particular vendor group, or you can use it for a particular method of payment or for a particular currency. Or if you need multiple filters, you can keep adding it here from the table. So let me select the transaction table and the field. So any more you wanted to give only for this date range, or you wanted to check the due date for only this range, those criteria can also be given. Okay, once you have created, click on OK. So and finish. So you will see this, there is one created with the date, and you will see the on the right hand side when what are the things were scheduled. You can see it will occur at 10 o'clock, and this is the scheduled one. So I have created one more 2 days before, so that I can show you the transaction how it happened. So you can see the one which has on the right hand side the vendor payment proposal. It was run on the day one, that is on 23rd, and 24th also it was run, but nothing was created. You can see there is an amount coming up. That means there are this transaction, some invoices were posted and what were due. So that's why it will create. And if there is no transaction, then system will not create anything. And here it is only creating a journal, but it will not post it automatically in the system. So I'll show you that particular journal. So this is the journal, it was created on the system. So you can see it has created like 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 lines, which are the multiple other invoices were selected. And here I have selected automatically the bank account. So it has given it, or you want to change it here, anything also it is possible. It's a proposal screen where it was in the draft mode only, it was not posted to the system. So once you wanted all this process, after that you can click validate and simulate posting and check whether all are okay and then post it. Or you can automate this part also with a batch job, saying that I wanted to automate it with uh, the schedule process will run basing on the frequency whatever I recommend, and once my process is run, all my payments get posted. So if you have any host to host integrations which are related to automations, from here it can process it to your bank accounts as well. But if you don't have any host to host, which you will have to initiate the process for in your bank account and make the payment process. But from the ERP side, once you have posted, that is done. So this is the detailed setup, and this can be a way changing for the AP department. And this is the new feature which Microsoft has given. Any questions I'd like to take up? Either on the invoice side or on the payment side, we both are happy to take them.
Venkatesh, there is a question about invoice processing, like just before the payment, right? So when
Yes.
this AP automation works, your all the scanned invoices lands into Dynamics as pending vendor invoices. So what
Yes.
happens after that?
So you will
The,
have to verify whether all my process was fine and check as a double check that whether all the fields were captured, the invoice details, invoice number, and the date, and provided if everything is fine, and you can go ahead and post it. So basing on the due date as the terms, we can agree on the vendor master, or either at the group level or at the vendor level. So you can set it up whether I'm due for 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Basing on that, it will process the invoice. So once they are due, then it will be picked up for the payment proposal.
yeah, so basically it also goes in workflow. right? So there's a new workflow for the invoice now, which so once you enable this feature, you cannot post an invoice without workflow. Actually, I'm doing a project right now where we don't need workflow the view invoicing, but just because we enabled the AP automation on some of the invoices, so we have to really use the work for all the invoicing now.
Okay.
So now invoicing is the workflow on the invoicing is a mandatory step, and basically what it does, it also process it does three-way match on the product receipt, and then
Yes.
also post it out. So three function happening in the same process.
Yeah, it doesn't need any approvers also. We can set it up that in
We can
automatic.
set auto approval. Yes,
Yes,
exactly. That's what
auto
we are
approval.
also doing. Exactly.
Yes. I think I feel that still mature. I mean, it's not that mature level solution on the OCR. I will feel that so many other updates will be coming soon from the Microsoft side.
Hmm.
I was expecting some more. I've seen some of the ideas also were posted and they were picking up on those as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Rachit is our guru on the scanning side. I haven't seen it personally, but Rachit has definitely done some work.
Sorry, is
Okay,
there a question? Yeah.
we have more questions here. If it starts from, or let me just cover the bottom relevant questions first. So one question is, how will it be considered good receipt before invoice posting? Okay, this is question related to invoicing because this product matching is happening automatically. So how does it consider that goods receipt? So Pawan, that's the question, right? Like, what's the logic of matching the product receipts to the invoice? You can unmute if you want to clarify your question. See,
Hello.
yeah, Pawan.
Hi. Hi. Actually, before invoice posting, we should consider that whether GRN has been made or not.
Exactly.
How it will post before goods receipt. We should not post invoice. How
Yeah,
it will
true.
consider this,
Yeah.
and as well as PO terms and condition which are already there. How it will consider those terms and condition for making payment also.
So on the product receipt, based on the vendor's requirement, like vendor's validation, two-way or three-way match, it does it automatically on a FIFO basis. So definitely it does that. So whatever product receipts are there, so you know this match product receipt button is there on the invoice, right? You have to click on that button while doing the manual invoicing. So it does that through the automation now. So product
Now, one
receipts
invoice
are.
may consider multiple items, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, multiple product receipts
So
can be there on that invoice list. So it
we
goes
have to
back.
check there should be some checkbox once it will automatically populate the invoice, right?
Sorry, what checkbox? Didn't get it.
And I am just asking whether once it will automatically populate the invoice after reading invoice capturing process, it will populate the items to choose what are GRN, or it will also automate it will automatically link with the GRN also.
It will automatically link. So that's called the matching process, right? So
Okay,
No,
okay.
I think
matching.
Satya, there's what Pawan is asking here is
Mhm.
specifically in India, you have to have GRN matched to an invoice from a standard compliance perspective.
Yeah.
So if that invoice automation is happening, the scan cannot detect the GRN, obviously, right? And if
Right.
a purchase order is having multiple lines and you have done a partial GRN, the automation process cannot do those matching.
Right.
So if you
Just
have
for
multiple GRNs also considered, because currently now you need to do a GRN to an invoice one to one. You are not
Right.
supposed to do a combined GRN to an invoice. from a Indian standpoint.
Or is it? I'm not aware if it's
Yeah,
some kind
yeah.
of
So that's
limitation
why
like
that's why
this.
I think Pawan is asking, because
All right.
currently it
Okay.
is in
Yes.
India it is one GR and a one invoice. So in case what happens in, if the good inwards is happening and there is
Uh-huh.
multiple GRNs pending to be invoiced,
Uh-huh.
this automation system will have a problem there because it cannot identify a GRN, individual GRN. That's the point.
Right.
Right.
Just
So,
just one thing on that, Saurabh sir. The configuration which we define in the invoice capture tool in Power Platform, that will be able to link your invoice lines to the items in the FNO. Now, once the invoice is pushed inside FNO, then the job of the invoice capture tool is over. Now, I am not sure if there is any GRN auto matching, like multiple GRN with one invoice capability within FNO. That's probably Venkat can answer. But from the invoice capture tool perspective, it is not doing any matching on the information which is extracted from the
Yeah,
invoice.
yeah. So
Yeah.
from a scan perspective, there is nothing. So when the metadata gets extracted and resides in D365, that is a problem. So what we have done is we have to break that particular process of automation where a central processing team is going to validate which particular GRN has to be picked up for the pending invoice. So there has to be manual process there. Otherwise, this automation process cannot do that particular matching.
Right. So have you
so
tried
you
extending
are
that part?
so you
Yeah.
are saying they can't be two product receipt, like we call it product receipt, right? Out of India.
Yeah, GRN is
Uh,
the Indian term. It's a product
yeah, yeah, I
receipt.
know. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. It was like more than 10 years ago now. Uh,
So I think Pawan's ask was that only. That's what he was
okay,
asking.
okay. Now
Correct. Correct.
I'll check that, but I don't think there is any kind of limitation here that they can't be two product receipt or GR and against one invoice. So that's what you're saying, right? It has to be
Yeah,
one
it
to
has to
one.
be one to one. So
Okay.
nowadays it
Hmm.
is from that
Okay.
perspective.
No, good
Because the
Point
vendor
taken.
is
Yeah.
so our invoice posting in our system has to match the vendor invoice. So
Hmm.
a consignment comes in, so
Hmm.
that consignment will come with a vendor invoice number. So if there are two different consignments coming in, there will be two different vendor invoice numbers.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you customize that process, right? Yeah, that's what
Not
you're saying.
customized, we have to break that. So
But
in the whole automation, you have to break and say that the central processing team has to do that check. They
that
have to pick that particular GRN in that.
step manually, the
Yeah,
matching
yeah.
step is
And
manual
that will
and then
automate
invoicing.
and that will
Okay.
automatically populate the lines below in the pending invoice.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good to know that.
And in another use case, there is a problem in India. So as
Uh-huh.
Rachit mentioned, the channels. I think channels, you can have multiple channels. It can be email, it can be a, nowadays in India, we are mature. It's a little slight matured enough, but still we are doing a vendor invoice scanning. The consignment comes is people have to scan, and that scan from a printer scan is not very high quality. But then in India, we have to consider the GSTN number. I'm not very sure that you have that idea. There is to under every vendor has a unique GSTN. So from there you have to pick
Hmm.
up the vendor code.
There is a
And
Right.
now in
certain
India, e-invoice concept is also there. So you can directly
So everyone is not managing that. So
from
from a
office,
QR code perspective, you can do a
but
scan.
bigger
Yeah.
vendor is there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can define the vendor mapping rule in the invoice capture solution based on the tax registration number. So maybe that GSTIN number can be used here to, I'm not sure which field it looks under the hood. I believe it should be that same one.
Yes, yes. The pre-configured invoice template Microsoft gives that picks up many a times, but it fails. Practically, it fails because the GSTN positioning and the text of the GSTN is very different in every invoice. So it's not picking up. So there are a lot of things to be done. It's that, yes, there is a framework, I think, but we are having a lot of burns of efforts
That's why
by
we have
managing the whole
system
thing.
implementation partners. Use them. Don't try to burn yourself. Cool,
Great.
cool. But good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Good to know that there have been scenarios identified where
Yeah,
the
yeah.
end-to-end automation is not able to meet the requirements. But definitely would like to know more, Saurabh sir, on this. Maybe a session from you next time.
No, actually, that would be good if we have the real use
Yeah, when
case,
it's a
people who
learning
are
which,
really
yeah,
implemented this
will
solution.
come out.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
okay.
think there were a few
Yeah.
more questions. Uh, there is a question from Mahesh. If we want to pay only for partial items on the invoice and remaining would like to pay later, in this case, how do we handle that specific invoice? I think that should be something within FNO we can manage.
Yeah, so either what they have to do is in the payment proposal, so select that particular payment and change the amount and then manually post it. So if you want to do a 100% payment, only then it can be automated for posting. But otherwise, the proposal is still in a draft mode where you can change whatever the amount you wanted to pay against that particular invoice.
Yeah, I think the proposal will just take up the whole invoice and pay, right? It can't really identify something you have to consider it manual, right? That's what you're saying, Sanjesh?
Yeah, when the automation is
You do.
created, it will only create a draft journal. So it doesn't post it. If they wanted to edit the amount of a particular invoice, they can change and
Yeah,
then do a post.
yeah.
Thank you. There is a question from Anil on if there is one invoice for two purchase order of the same vendor, will automation consolidate the invoice? Good question, Anil. I haven't tested it out, but I checked into the FAQ of that application, and it says that it is treated as a PO invoice if it's associated when if one invoice is linked with multiple POs of the same vendor. So I haven't tested it, but it seems like that the solution caters for this scenario. So I think we'll have to try it out and see how it behaves. Cool.
There was one more question. I don't know we read it or not. I think from Sir, how will it consider, sorry, there's that non-PO invoice, right? The non-PO invoice, I think still there is no solution for
Yeah.
that. It just creates the pending invoices, pending vendor invoices, does not create tax invoice journal, but pending invoice journal can create with the categories. So that's what if you, I think it still needs a purchase order, right? So Microsoft has not come with the tax invoice journal automation right now. It's just the PO. That's what I
So, Satya,
read.
Yeah, correct. It was correct. So it doesn't work on the non-PO invoice journals basically at this point. Maybe they will extend it,
Pending,
but
you mean the yeah. Right. Some of the I think they're still working on. It is one of them.
true.
there was a question from B. What if the invoice is a multiple page document, like a 10-page document being sent by the vendor? How will the system consider the lines and amount? So I checked in that FAQ and the presentation which Microsoft gave. It basically can read an invoice even if it is 10-page, but it will have a performance impact and it will consume more of your AI builder credit. So it can be a bit costly, but it can process it. There are some performance limits like throttling and so the number of concurrent invoices which it can read, and they are in line with the Dataverse throttling and API limits, which is around 52 concurrent invoices. And yeah, I think there is a API throttling limit, so it's in line with Dataverse. But yes, there are few more things which can impact the performance. So yeah, I think we'll get more clarity as we use this application in future. But check out that tech talk which I showed. I'll share the link. it has a good presentation linked to it, and there is a bit more in-depth uh, demo of the configuration and the solution. Yeah. I've shared the link. Cool. Any other points, or anyone wants to unmute and discuss anything? I really appreciate everyone joining. It's the first session of this year, and we have a good number of audience. So thanks everyone for supporting us.
Hi, Venkatesh. This is Navin. So it will not consider the vendor invoice journals, isn't it?
Right now on the OCR thing, yes. Right now it only works with the PO invoices,
PO
but
invoices.
it's
Okay.
not yet extended to vendor invoice journals
Okay.
yet.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's my understanding as well. Yeah.
Anybody knows about the licensing part of it? Because I know some of it, but Rachit, you any experience, or maybe Saurabh, you have worked on it?
Oh, licensing, there is a big difference.
Uh-huh.
So we started with what you showcased, the Power Platform thing. And
Right.
it was quite, so $400 earlier we were
It
being
will
charged.
be
So
expensive, I think, because of the AI builder credits as well as the Dataverse, because Dataverse, I think, is built based on the usage, and all the data of this solution is going in Dataverse. So yeah. Sorry,
but
Saurabh,
I
sir.
think we moved then to the form recognizer, which comes from the Azure platform. That's the pricing is quite a big of difference, but here someone has to be a technical novice. So he has to know about the connectors and all. There's slight customizations required there. But yes, there is a big difference on the subscription charges.
Right. So Microsoft charge based on, let's say, 1,000 invoices, something, right?
Yes, 1,000
Certain
or
dollars per
2,000.
1,000 invoices, right? Okay.
Exactly.
There is also one-time fee. You're saying $500, which is the one-time fee for.
No, so in form recognizer, it's an as you go, they're charged.
Right. And this is a basically standalone tool, this OCR tool, right? And Microsoft is marketing it as a different app, separate app, which can be used with any ERP. Right. So the thing, this is
Yes,
an
yes,
app,
you
use
can
it with
use.
Dynamics, use it with SAP or Oracle, any ERP you can bolt on.
Yes, these form recognizers are. It's only that you need to connect, like for SAP, you need to connect SAP connectors to that, and you can use it. But because this is a major part is the artificial intelligence, which is the major cost for it.
Okay, we have one hand raised. Okay. Yeah, Uday.
Hey guys, good evening everyone. I have a question. I sorry I couldn't able to type long. Just asking the question here. Recently,
sure.
I'm also started working on the API automation side. Joined with Microsoft team directly. I have a multiple questions. So I know a lot about pending vendor invoice, how it works. When this automation process was introduced, I think Microsoft investing most of them towards targeting the pending vendor invoice only, right? And at the same time, we have another concepts called invoice journal, invoice register, and invoice approval. So all of them ultimately reaching, I mean, designed to invoice processing only in the FNO. So what I understood from Microsoft is, I think their future investments will be towards spending vendor invoice only, and they are not much concentrated on this. The three other ways to create invoice. One is invoice journal, invoice register, and we also have invoice approval routing. What I wanted to understand from the industry perspective, when exactly these options are used, is there any particular reason why there are so many routing ways for the invoice processing? Right, invoice journal is also for the same, register is also for the same. So I would like to understand what is the difference between these types, when to be used, what was there any guideline?
Okay.
Was the question clear?
Yeah, I think it's clear. And Venkatesh, you wanna give it a try first?
Yeah, not completely. I'm not sure if whether I will be able to answer, but whatever I know, I'll try to give an insight. Thanks for the question, Uday. It was nice. So the thing is, there is a penny invoices. Let's say you have paid a Uber bill or you have paid a cash bill or something, which doesn't really need to have a purchase order, and it will you ideally be created as an invoice journal directly in the system, and it gets paid either by petty cash or by bank account.
Mhm.
But in those scenarios, there is no purchase orders created, that because it's a tedious process for a small input. It doesn't even matter for a huge amount. So these kind of scenarios, they will use the invoice journals. Let's say there is an electricity bill, or you would like to pay for a cleaning charges or something like that. So
Mm.
these places, when there is no such huge value or annual contract, so they take it without PO. So that is for the non-purchase order invoice, which is invoice journal. Invoice register is kind of, you wanted to automate like 10, 20 invoices at a time for a particular vendor. So that is where you use the invoice register. So invoice journal can be line by line, which you can enter. Invoice register can be at 10 or 20 lines at a time. So invoice journal or
Uh-huh.
register can be more or less similar, but if you wanted to do a bulk, that is where they do at the invoice register, and invoice journal is for less quantity. That's what the
Okay.
difference ideally.
Nice question, Uday. My just adding on to what Venkatesh said, my take is it may also vary industry to industry. So not one particular type of industry will use all these type of journals. And as we know that FNO caters to so many different type of industries, and this product has evolved from last more than 20
Mm.
25 years. It has kept Microsoft has kept adding more and more and more. So it may be an evolution that we are today seeing so many different options to create invoices, just to make sure that we are not breaking what there is already in the system and catering to specific scenarios, catering to specific industries. I think pushing everything in pending invoice journal gives us more secure way to feed FNO from integration perspective, to avoid any unforeseen errors, and gives a chance for users to review it before it basically becomes a confirmed invoice. That's just my take from a technical perspective, but of course, like Venkat mentioned from his experience around the business scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Some of them could be legacy journal types, and yeah, they might be existing customers for those types.
Yeah.
I asked the same question to the Microsoft manager, who's actually redesigning a lot of concept. Unfortunately, he's from the SAP background and he's recently joined. He's also, trying to frame the concepts, but there was no documentation found. There's no concrete answers found. So just doing an inquiry whenever I get an opportunity about this. Thank you.
No, I
Thanks for
think
the
Yeah,
answer.
it's definitely a
I never
valid question.
used I never used the other types. I never use, so I also don't have concrete answer to it. When we use the invoice register and all, like I tried to check it
Yeah.
before, but they say it is a two-step process. Now, invoice register, basically, you bring the invoices first for workflow or something in the register. From there, you take it to the next form. It's hard to basically digest because you can do everything in the invoice journal as well for the
Mm.
purchase order. I think these are redundant unless it is some particular country-specific requirement somewhere in the Europe, because many of the features are, let's say, belong to Russia or some Denmark or any country in the Europe.
Got it. Thank you. I mean, one last point is Microsoft, whatever is investing, I think it's mostly towards spending on invoice in the future as well. That's what the manager said.
Exactly.
All
But
the
if you are,
refactorings, OCRs,
true.
all this stuff.
Yeah, but if you're aware of this the landed cost when you get the invoice for the freight and all, I think there you capture that invoice only in the journal. I think that doesn't go to the pending vendor invoice. Might be wrong if someone has experience on that.
Sorry,
Yeah,
can you repeat
we
that
have.
last one?
The
I didn't get Satya.
the
Can you please?
landed cost invoices. You know
Okay.
the landed cost module of Dynamics. So when the
Oh,
final invoice comes and you match it with your landed cost, then it has to be in the journal.
okay. Sorry, I'm
From
not
that
aware
like
of
2 years
that.
back. Yeah, means I'm saying those invoices are captured in the journals by like forcefully, you can say. You don't have the interface in the purchase order for that.
It's
So
evolved, Satya. Now, we recently implemented just a couple of months back. So now you can directly link the voyage invoice to the purchase order itself.
oh, is it?
And
Okay.
yes, you can link the cost directly at the voyage level, and you can specify the cost in the landed cost module. And once you give the costs in the landed cost module, once you do invoice for your PO, the voyage invoice is auto posted.
Okay, so you don't need to go to journal now.
No need.
Okay, good to know that. Well, I checked it like almost 1.5 years back.
Yeah.
Very good. I learned something new. Venkatesh.
And I have also implemented one outside other system which has OCR. So that was also pretty good. And the features for them is like they can read multiple languages and they charge basing on the language and the space what we use, like how many invoices you are capturing and how much space you are consuming based on the GB they are charging. And that's also a
Right.
very good OCR platform. So there they have extended that we can define the main accounts also in their website. So the selection of the invoice criteria for them, it will work with PO and non-PO also. But then you never know,
Okay.
Microsoft may come
ISVs
up
are
with these all
matured and
features.
yeah, ISVs are
Yes,
matured than what we have as a standard offering.
correct.
Cool, cool. Right, just on time.
Right. So I'm sharing this two links here for the speakers, and if you have any idea, you can submit your idea for this group. And definitely, we need more speaker like Venkatesh. If you have anything you implemented recently, something you want to share with the community, so feel free to connect with Rachit or me or Umesh.
Thank you,
Right.
Venkatesh.
So thank you very much, guys. Whoever has spent time with us today, taken 1 hour of your life from the weekend, and yeah, stay connected on our group, LinkedIn and YouTube, and keep on joining our sessions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Owen. Thank you.
Great show, Venkatesh.
Thanks a lot,
Cheers.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Venkatesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.